Good afternoon and welcome to the Citizen Body Podcast, or as we call it, the Bodycast here. You are either listening to and or watching the Bodycast. Do you guys like the name?
Yeah, that's good.
We've chose the Bodycast as the name because a lot of times when you need to fix something that is broken, you need to immobilize it or put a cast on it. So podcast, Bodycast, it all kind of work together. So on the Bodycast, what we talk about is the things that unite us, because we strive to be an all-inclusive community, and we promote things like eat small, shop small, vote small, art small, because that's where we seem to have the biggest impact in our communities. And today we are with our featured, we're with obviously our co-founder, John Katrina, and we are thrilled to welcome Jim and Lynn Lemyre. If I said that right, I got it right. And they are our featured artists this week on the Citizen Body. So if you want to find out more about the Citizen Body, you can go to www.thecitizenbody.com. And that's where you find our content, where we've got obviously the podcast, we've got articles, lessons, different takeaways. And we also have a lot of different artists and musicians who we feature each week. And this week, you guys are our featured artists. So welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So tell us first about how you met, because you guys work on your art together, which is something that's a little bit more unusual in the art realm. That's kind of what's interesting about you guys.
Well, we made it through 4 years of school without once running into each other. Went to all the same openings, ate all the same free food, drank all the free wine that artists always love, and never managed to actually connect. But after we graduated, we moved into the same house. So,
wow.
I lived downstairs and Lynn moved into the apartment upstairs, and that's how we met on the front porch.
Yeah, he was painting on the front porch, so it was easy to recognize him as a fellow artist.
Yeah. So 4 years of running in the same circles, but never actually connecting.
Well, maybe kind of circles that kind of knocked against each other sometimes, but never like the same friends or anything like that.
Yeah. Where did you guys grow up?
Well, I was born in Mount Holly, where we live now, but my father was in the Air Force, so we moved around a lot. I lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and northern Italy, and so eventually I ended up back here.
Yeah, we were actually in Europe at the same time when we were 5, and we both went to Asilo, which is like an Italian daycare kind of kindergarten situation. Me in Switzerland and him in Italy when we were 5 years old. So
Wow.
weird kind of stuff like that every once in a while.
Yeah. And Lynn, where did you grow up?
I grew up in upstate New York, just outside Saratoga Springs.
Okay. And then you guys, so then college, you guys were at Rutgers.
Right.
And which is for those of people who are not local or might not know, Rutgers is in New Jersey. And then you moved to Mount Holly. You guys both moved to Mount Holly.
Mm-hmm.
And at what point did you guys start to collaborate with your art?
Well, it's pretty much as soon as we started living together, because when you're young and you don't have a lot of money, your space is limited. And like now we have 2 studios, but at the time we were all working in the same place. And you have somebody looking over your shoulder going, you know what you ought to do with that? And then pretty soon you're in irritation, or just because you don't know what you want to do with it, you go, well, fine, then you do it. So we kind of, that's kind of a jokey way of saying, we started talking about the work together more and more, and then just started becoming more and more collaborative. It was a, pretty gradual, but inevitable, I think, occurrence, because surrealism lends itself to it. Our style of painting is considered either surrealist, imaginative realist, or you can call it magical realism too. There's several titles for it, but ultimately it kind of is an intellectual exercise too. It's more than just simply painting a scene that you see outside, as beautiful as it is and wonderful to capture it. There's not a real intellectual aspect to it, and ours is more like that.
Yeah, aspiring to be a little bit poetic in some way, to have a twist on something visual. Maybe it's a pun or a metaphor.
Or the when you juxtapose two like unrelated things together, our brains are wired to try and make meaning even if there was no maybe intended meaning, and or sometimes you juxtapose those things because there's some sort of meaning you don't realize is there yet. So
Yeah. Well, everything we do here at the Citizen Body is to try to make or help people think or encourage thinking in some way, because it actually grew out of my consulting work, because I just noticed the remarkable difference when human beings in a subset are focused on emoting and negative things, and when you get them actually focused on thinking and creating, just that process itself is a much healthier process of human energy. And the learning then is occurring, and then it becomes more of a virtuous cycle versus the vicious cycle of, the opposite. So, yeah, I think that's probably what attracted us. And I should probably tell the listeners that, we came together because one of our members in our meetings had your painting in their backdrop on a Zoom call like this. And then that led to another member. We were talking about it, and why's the boat up in the air? And I'll let you guys talk about your art, but it was a conversation, and then that led to actually, I think, a purchase from you. And that's kind of our process here at the Citizen Body. So that's why we figured, hey, we should have you on. I also think it's really cool, Sue, that, music to me, my rush comes from playing with other people and the physiology of playing off of each other. And I think it's interesting that when you paint together, that it's more rare, but do you get a feeling that's more whole than if you just did it yourself?
oh yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. That's part of why we enjoy working together, the back and forth, and also when you're, a musician plays for an audience, and we really enjoy getting out there. For the first time in a year, we were at an art show a couple of weeks ago in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it feels really good just to get feedback, so that if you're in a bubble creating things and there's nobody there to see it, did you hear the sound in the forest when the tree fell and nobody was there?
Yeah.
Interesting what you said about the kind of positive aspect of creating. A lot of people have a kind of a mistaken idea that surrealism, and it's not completely mistaken. There is very dark surrealism. It's out there, and there's a good reason for it. But we choose, not that we don't have dark things, that pass through our heads. We choose to use the paintings as a way to process anything dark and try to put out light, because there is so much darkness in the world that we really want to put out something beautiful that will have a positive effect. And I can use an example if you don't mind.
Yeah, love to.
Of a dream that he had a number of years ago, which was, you remember, it's the Hummingbird Dream. Where
it was a negative image.
Oh, it was horrible. You imagined all these hummingbirds on a conveyor belt. No, it's a great dream. These hummingbirds on a conveyor belt, and he had a hammer, and he was hitting them with the hammer, and every time he hit one, it would shatter, but it would make kind of like a shattered glass, almost musical sound. And he woke up and he was so upset with this. So we discussed it, and we decided that the best way to deal with this was to paint an apology to the hummingbirds.
Wow. So the hummingbirds, were they in your dream? Were they real, and then they turned to glass after you hit them?
Right. At the moment of impact. Yeah, that's what happened.
Interesting. So that's what I was envisioning, as you were saying, a live animal. So that's how those dreams go. They're so illogical. So you see the real animal, so you probably have trepidation. Why am I killing this animal? But then it shatters in glass, and then it's probably a relief. Oh, it's not actually a real hummingbird.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's surreal itself.
We kind of saw it as, at the time, it was kind of a grind. You have moments in your artistic career where it's not all joy and light. No, we get to paint in the studio. It's like it can feel like a grind. and you can also like question whether what you're doing is authentic and or
Yeah.
repetitive. Are you repeating yourself? And there's sometimes you question that. So are we destroying the authenticity of each piece by like repeating themes? It was a time period where we were exploring all those kind of questions.
It's torturous. And Sue, I know you talked about wanting to learn the ukulele, but if you go down the road of music or art or it's such a roller coaster. Things that you think are going to be your magnum opus, sometimes people are just like, eh. And sometimes you think something that's something that's like mundane, you're getting ready, it's on the scrap heap bin, you're like, yeah, and they're like, oh my God, that's brilliant. And you're just like, I can't even. So after a while, I reached a point where it's like, doesn't even matter. I'm just gonna like throw it all out there.
Put it out there.
And the feedback, like you said. But the funny thing is too, is what I think also attracted me to your art in particular is we have this thing called imagination exercise, because we believe the imagination is kind of a muscle. And part of our cultural problem, I think, with the tribalism and the polarization is the people's imaginations have become weak. When you can no longer see a better world, when you can no longer see things being better. And I think a lot of people are at that point. They've just kind of given up. I know people just in the city of Philadelphia, like, this city's done, or this country's destroyed, or it's over, right? You hear this kind of talk. Whereas, obviously you can just be the eternal optimist and be like, no, it's not, think positive. I'm thinking more like, are you actually imagining what and how specifically it's different? So what you guys do in your painting, I think, is you challenge that imagination and you stimulate it. So to me, it's actually contributing to the exercise of imagination, which is something our culture and country very much needs, is a stronger imagination.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about you were saying you felt like some of your artwork had a common theme to it. And John already mentioned the boats in the air. Tell us a little about the boats in the air.
Yeah, there have been a lot of, over the years, probably 100 or more boats just floating above the surface of the water, sometimes floating in the clouds. And a lot of different cultures have boats as a metaphor for life's journey. And
like the vessel of your soul.
The vessel of your soul, And so we just have them positioned in so many different places, and they're above, usually to transcend, to have a kind of, spiritual quality. You were talking about spiritualism earlier. And so the boats are a recurring theme because we love boats.
Yeah.
Well, also the idea that if you're not subject to the whims of tides and currents, that your mind, your imagination, your soul, you have self-determination about the direction that you want to go in. Ultimately,
like the boat really could exist anywhere.
Right. It could be in the water and just, it doesn't have oars, so it's gonna go. If it's in the water, it's just gonna go, and you're helpless. But if it's in the air, it's suggesting that your mind, your imagination is boundless.
And so we're hoping that the viewer will put themselves in the boat or as the boat, and just feel that freedom that we kind of feel when we paint them.
Yeah. And we have to go somewhere new as a humankind, as the humans. We have to go somewhere that we've never been before, a new level of accomplishment spiritually, intellectually, with peace and what we call homeostasis in the citizen body. Because our analogy is that we're all, as our body has trillions of cells, different specialties, but with their own individual constitutions, right? But they all work together to achieve homeostasis in that body. And when you get certain illnesses, that's when you see the disruption of that, right? Either from an outside force, like we're in the pandemic right now. We should say in this podcast, we're still, we're in the kind of 50% vaccination range of it, I guess, to cue people in. But cancer, your own body sometimes has cells that kind of go rogue. But we look at it as like, the human beings have been evolving. There were more barbaric times, and things are still bad, but in that imagination, I think we see it as more fits and starts of like just pockets of sort of inflammation that you might have as you come out of an illness or as you go through the stages of an illness. But if you really zoom back and take the alien perspective we do, it's still markedly better, and we see a positive direction. And that's what we're just trying to encourage people to do. And so the art, when you do your art that makes people think, and it's funny because I have this analogy I always tell people in business where I'm like, you can't control the waves, but you can learn to surf on your surfboard better on the waves, right? But you've kind of taken that to the next level with like, oh, well, maybe if the surfboard can elevate above the waves, maybe, and maybe mentally that's the mind over matter thing too.
And the way that kind of speaks to me in a way too, is like once that boat is up out of the water, it's kind of elevated itself above the elements, above the influences. Like, if it's out of the water, you're not worrying about the tide. You're not worrying about, where the moon is or where the sun is in relation to what's going to happen with the water taking over and controlling the boat. It has its own more element of its own control.
Right.
Yeah.
And we should probably say that since we're talking so much about these boats, that the website is Lemyre Art. That's LEMYRE art.com. And you can see all of the art there. And also on our website at citizenbody.com as a featured artist.
Yeah. And I believe can you also purchase I guess copies or replicas of different paintings that you like?
The reproductions are available online, and we also post all our latest work up there, which somebody just has to email us and we'll let them know what the price is.
Yeah. Show us. Do you have anything that you can show us?
You want to grab it?
I also saw a wine bottle in the background there, and
well,
yeah,
this one's good.
It's a little early for me.
A little. Oh, there's a boat. Okay. There you go.
So this was a winery out of California that commissioned a painting.
How did you guys get hooked up with that?
They find us online. We've done a couple of album covers. We've done a few wine bottles. We don't promote it, but people seem to find us somehow.
Yeah.
So,
and now that you mention album covers, something sounds familiar. Like, what albums might we have seen that you did the cover?
Oh, they're small band. They're small bands, but we also have a
Brooklyn,
book. Oh yeah, can you grab the book? We had a book cover, which I thought was really cool. Can you reach in there? Right.
Oh, this one,
Yeah. Just yank it out. Sorry for not being prepared.
That's okay.
So it's a book called The Culinary Imagination.
Okay.
Interesting because the cover is our painting.
Yeah.
Get there. And it's actually a pretty interesting book, and that's our painting on the cover.
Oh, very cool.
And it goes, and there's another boat right there.
Another boat.
Now that one's in the water, isn't it?
That one is. Yes. Coming for the feast.
See, just when you thought you had it down, a surprise.
Yep. And it was low tide, John. Definitely low tide in that one. Now, when you guys do that, when you paint, like my question would you guys answered it for me also, but I don't know if anybody else is wondering this. When you're painting, is it that one of you, your primary medium appears to be oil, is that correct?
Yes.
And then when you paint, is it that one person does like that background or that landscape scene, and then the other person does the boat? Because they look like they're two very distinct styles.
Sometimes. We'd like to think that it's melded into a kind of a combined style, but it depends on the painting and how quickly we need to get things done for a show. Like we're doing one.
Yeah. And just to remind everybody that you are listening or watching the Citizen Body Podcast, or the Bodycast as we call it. And if you are enjoying and liking the content that you're seeing, please go to www.thecitizenbody.com to get more information. We've got newsletters, comics, copies, the podcast, other content available. Also, there is a donate button. So if you're liking what you're seeing and you want to help us keep the content coming, please feel free to donate. And again, one of our featured artists that is on our website this week is Lemyre Art Studio. And we've got Jim and Lynn Lemyre with us. And it's been awesome, really, like kind of seeing some of the things that you're doing.
Well, also, we were talking about different themes that are recurring. One of them is these trees.
Yeah.
And the trees, and not everybody sees it, but the trees are in the figure of a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Once you see it, you can't.
I thought I saw it when it was zoomed back. And then when you brought it in closer, I still saw it as a woman, but I saw her from a different angle.
So now that makes me curious about, you guys mentioned philosophy, I think, in some of your bio. Who are some of your influences?
I think it's not philosophy so much as psychology. Is Carlin?
Carl Jung, that's right. Okay.
He's huge for us.
Okay. Did you ever read any of Joseph Campbell's work by chance?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Power of Myth, The Hero with a Thousand Faces.
That's probably because, he talks about how art is, the artists are the ones that advanced the spiritual, and it's like that's actually Grady and I, who was the gentleman who actually brought us together for this. He brought up the connection between art and spirituality, and I actually called him and wanted to talk about that. And so it's just interesting, because the Joseph Campbell spirit of follow your bliss. I don't know if you know about that. People say that when you start working in your bliss, people will come into the field of your bliss. But we're kind of trying to, with the citizen body analogy, taking that body thing and saying, if we're all sort of problem solving together and we're all sort of seeking truth and imagining together, it's just a more constructive use of human energy. So that's why I was curious about I guess in this case, Carl Jung is the psychological influence, which ties really into, philosophy and psychology are so closely intertwined, I think. And we try to blend even from the spirituality or theology to philosophy to science and art. We think we have to start being able to hold them almost together in our minds.
Jim and Lynn, I was just looking at the painting that you were showing us that is behind you of the trees and the woman. And when we were looking at that before, I knew, I saw the woman from one angle, and then as you brought it in closer, I still saw the woman, but from a different angle. And is there any significance to the trees and the woman? Like, what's the we were just talking about psychology and the effects that it has on your paintings, and is there any significance to the woman and the tree?
Well, for trees and figures, I always feel like that we're always trying to form a connection with nature, and so we tend to anthropomorphize nature in a number of ways, whether it's Jeremy Fisher in the Beatrix Potter, or whether
you see
a horse in the clouds, or people in trees. So for the trees, it's about connection. It's about having some sort of connection with nature and finding ways to connect. I think more or less. But with that particular painting, it's not only about that, but it's also, like you were saying,
about a threshold between, maybe two different realities. And that one has I don't know if you notice, there's a key hanging from the tree and a little keyhole in the woods. And so it's about unlocking these different doors to open up the imagination. A lot of the paintings, we've done a series of so many different paintings of thresholds between two different worlds, two different realities.
Yeah.
Now, how many years have you guys been painting together? Like, how long has it been?
How long are we married?
35 years, about.
Let's guess.
Oh, wow. Well, this serves its own congratulations right there. So.
Yeah. In
Nicely
that
done.
time, how many paintings do you think you've produced? Do you have a count?
Oh God, no.
It's up around, I'm going to say 500 maybe
Okay.
the
Boy.
years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And is this your primary, like we were talking before about employment, and a lot of times artists, it can be difficult to sustain a living as, art as the only mechanism of income. What else do you guys do?
Well, it's changed over the years. Sometimes, depending on whatever the financial status of the United States is, because after 9/11, our sales took an enormous dip, and of course it took a while to crawl out of that, and we had to take jobs to be able to live. It's not probably the easiest career, but it is definitely rewarding. It's definitely rewarding. I mean, artists have problems getting health insurance. I mean, there's I mean, now that we have we don't have universal health care, but we have Obamacare. That helped for a number of years, but we go on and off taking jobs from time to time, but they're usually not art related. I was the director of an art center for 5 years in Trenton.
Okay.
There's also the marketing that I find hard. The artistic side of me, it's exhausting, especially with social media now. It seems like you have to just constantly market, all the different platforms, constantly selling. And how do you guys feel about that part of it? Because you're doing this for a living, you're doing it for a business. Does it reduce? What's that?
Lynn is really good at computers and graphic design, and so Lynn does all the good stuff that I really can't do. Painting houses wasn't for Lynn.
But does it detract from your feeling as an artist ever when you're selling and selling?
No, and I think it's like creating wider communities and wider connections. I mean, already I feel like because we don't work primarily with galleries. We do work with one gallery that's fairly local, but in general, we go out and like kind of a gypsy lifestyle, go out and bring our art out into the public by doing outdoor arts festivals, outdoor art shows, and that has widened, our connections in the world. But only within pretty much this country. Whereas when you're on social media, your reach is much larger to find people who have similar ideas, similar desires, similar tastes, and I think it's a great thing to be able to do. It's hard to keep up all the time because if you're not like a real extrovert, which we consider ourselves friendly introverts, where we can have conversations like this and be very comfortable and talk, but then afterwards we're just gonna have to go lie down. That was really
Yeah.
I always say that's the one thing COVID taught me about myself. I thought I was an extrovert. I found out that I was not. And friendly introvert, I think I might have to steal that one.
Yeah, we are. But it can be draining, and we go through periods of where I'm very much into the idea of like putting out everything that's going on, woo, and then other times where it's like shut down, complete shutdown. So it varies. I can't keep up the level that some people are capable of keeping up, but our presence is always there if someone wants to look. We always have our website. That's our home base. We can always be found there. I tend to keep that pretty updated. So.
And give us the website address.
It's lemyreart.com.
Okay, so lemyreart.com, LEMYRE art.com. Mm-hmm. And so just with the spelling being a little bit different, just making sure that it can be accessible to everybody. And what kind of connection do you feel like? You mentioned to us that you had been at an art festival in Chattanooga recently.
Yes.
And like, as an introvert, how do you feel about getting that? Like, is that more personal connection? Do you find that means more when you're able to get out there and actually be at your? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead on this
No,
one.
it's invaluable when it's not like you need validation, but at some point you want to know that you're not, going off the rails with some ideas. Maybe
Yeah.
it's something that people can't relate to, But in Chattanooga, we were, the new work was received really well, and we did well in Chattanooga, and we're thankful for that. But yeah, just talking to people about these ideas and stuff, when you get out into the world, you can't do that in your studio. People don't.
Do you find that you get more sales from like the in-person or from, yeah? Because
Absolutely.
I think people see a painting and they might connect. I feel like I connect more to it when it's in front of me, and I'm more likely to maybe purchase it or say, hey, you know what? I want that. Like I'll buy my art usually as a reminder of something that I've either done or a place that I've been. And that's what, like in my house, I have a lot of pictures hanging on the walls, and that's what my art tends to be that I've picked up. And even, after I've, had to empty out my mother's house, and there were way more pictures on the wall than I had thought of. And, my partner's saying to me, oh, we got all this stuff, we got to get rid of it. I'm like, I can't get rid of that. It meant something to her. It's a connection. You know what I mean? And I find myself connected when it's the painting that was hers, that I recognize what it meant to, even though like I wasn't there, but she told me about it. And I remember what it meant to her. And that's where I feel that connection. And then when I go out and I'm experiencing a piece, life, I find that that's where I connect with it, is more of the in-person. Although I loved looking at the website, and that's where the first thing I was like, I saw like there was, I think 4 or 5 pictures of the boats, and I was like, gotta ask them about the boats.
Well, we tend to be able to sell reproductions, which are more affordable. They're not a big financial risk for people to do. We do sell originals from people who have seen them online, but they generally seem to be sold to people who have already seen us in person or already bought from us. So they know pretty much what they're going to get.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an unpleasant surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very good.
And I think, so I was just going to say that one of the ways they get out is they have a show coming up. This will probably air mid-May, but there's a show coming up in June in Rittenhouse, correct?
Yeah, June 4th, 5th, and 6th. But it is a virtual Rittenhouse at this time. But
that's right.
Rittenhouse isn't.
Okay.
But the Rittenhouse Fine Art Show it occurs in the spring and in the fall. So the spring one, the plan is virtual. Do you think the fall one might be in person?
Oh, we're hoping, because it's our favorite show to do. We love Philadelphia. We love the park. Philadelphia is filled with a lot of really intelligent, art savvy people. And it's always lovely having conversations. That's how we met Grady.
Okay. It'd be good if we could get, we're looking for videographers, video editors, and if we could, get a videographer out there and maybe take some footage of you guys out at a show if they have it in the fall. I think it'd be a great way. Like this tour of the studio was good that we posted up, but seeing you guys in action at one of those shows would probably be good too.
Oh yeah.
You could do a live video from there on your Facebook or Instagram too, I guess.
Well, for the virtual show, we actually are going to have, I think, a Facebook Live interview or that's going to happen, and then we haven't gotten the date time scheduled, but we also do like a Zoom where we have like an open studio Zoom through Rittenhouse. They're really trying to much more than a lot of other shows offer opportunities even through COVID. For people to be able to connect. So more so than just looking at a bunch of pictures on a website, to interact. So everybody should check out the Rittenhouse Art Show website, because they'll have a schedule of events of all the artists are going to do something or another, whether it's a Zoom or a virtual booth or whatever. But people will have the opportunity to actually speak with the artists.
Yeah, and even if you're,
how do you do a virtual booth?
It's like a Zoom. It's like an extended Zoom, which I have to be really careful about, because sometimes Zoom will shut you down after 45 minutes. So, if they don't if there's no activity. But I think ours was something like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, I wore a T-shirt,
Yeah,
and
that was
Lynn
funny.
wrote on magic marker LemyreArt.com on the back of my T-shirt. So it's me painting in the
Yeah, that
studio
was
with
funny.
a wall set up with paintings on it. And so if somebody wants to ask a question, they can say, "Excuse me, can you?" And so I'll just turn around and talk to them. Or Lynn's usually there, and
I'm
she'll
there.
talk to them.
So when you do the virtual, do you set the studio up so that people, like, I know like at an art festival, you would have like your equipment and you would have some booths and you'd have like the paintings hanging up and people
Yep.
could browse.
Mhm.
And do you set your studio up like that, or do you actually go out to Rittenhouse and then just nobody else can come in?
Yeah,
No.
we use the same walls that we do outside in the fresh air in a 10 by 10 spot, but the one upstairs is more like 10 by 3. It's shallow because you can't keep panning
Right.
around and checking things out. So we do set up one wall with about 9 paintings, something like that.
Okay.
And then people can stop in and all throughout the time that we're open, that the booth is open, and chat.
And we could probably go outside the Philadelphia area then, because anyone can
Right.
attend it, right? So that's the upside. So I was going to just say, Sue, real quickly for the audience. So it's paintings to hang on your wall, wine bottle labels, albums, right? Is there any other kind of work that you would do that the listeners or viewers would like to maybe be good to know?
Oh yeah, we have a project that we've been working on. Oh my gosh, it's been 5 years now. We're working on the major arcana of a tarot deck.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh.
we called the Threshold Tarot, and it has its own website, which is thresholdtarot.com.
Okay.
And we've been working through each of the major arcana, and we're doing it slowly because, and also as a kind of mental exercise. But
Yeah.
young are also very interested in the tarot. We're not interested in a woo woo sense. It's more of a psychological, like
Dealing with archetypes.
dealing with the idea of archetypes and that whole idea of how the juxtaposition of like different cards or different objects within a painting will jog your subconscious and kind of release imagination or suppressed or things that are suppressed in there. It's just it's an interesting project.
I can't say I know a lot about tarot cards, but are you painting it as the set of cards that like somebody who is doing a reading would turn over the cards and do that? Or are you making paintings of all of the different ones and then they're going to be a series of paintings?
There are representation of the tarot, well, there's so many different kinds of tarot cards, but the 19th century Rider-Waite-Smith deck is the one that we're kind of putting a riff on.
Okay.
And there's all different kinds of tarot readers. There are those that believe truly in being able to predict the future, but we don't look at it that way. We look at it more like seeing where trying to get messages from your own subconscious about decision making or what's going on in your life or whatever. It's more of a psychological exercise, not a magical, in any, I don't know how you want to take that term but yeah.
No, I think it's sensible approach. Are there any paintings of yours where you would say they deal with archetypes? Because that's a major, I think, Jung and Joseph Campbell sort of theme, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, and pretty much all of them. The tarot series has about 15 images, I think, that are on the website right now. And
okay.
Yeah, they're all about archetypes.
Right. But in the non-tarot series, though, or the boats, I guess I'm thinking of the boats and maybe the nature with the woman. Would you consider those archetypal or?
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, because they are cross-cultural. Okay. So it's not something that is necessarily specific to European culture.
Right.
There are certain symbols that it doesn't matter where you come from in the world, you will have a similar reaction to it, and that's what makes an archetype. Maybe not you know, the archetype of the mother or the archetype of the father. I mean, there's definite archetypes that Jung discusses,
Mhm.
but some of the symbols are symbols that are cross-cultural, and we kind of see them as archetypes as well.
Interesting. Okay, good stuff. So we know where to start looking for, help with some of our graphic needs here, I guess, right?
I mean, we could probably use some help.
Yeah. We can all use a little help, I guess, right?
Yeah. So Rittenhouse Fine Art Show in the spring and the fall is the next place that we can find you. And any paintings that you guys have worked on where you like that are just super memorable for you, or that just kind of spoke to you?
That's a good question.
They're all maybe like your children. It's
I was
hard to
gonna
pick
say
a
our
favorite,
babies.
you know. And there's been pivotal ones that are, moving.
I only have one, so that's pretty easy.
Yeah. But let me show you one thing that's here. It just happened to be here. We forgot.
Oh no, that's okay.
Yeah. This is sculpted more than painted, but it is painted, the red part. And that's
Okay.
We're doing a series of
Let me get the other one.
of keyhole paintings.
That's
And this is a dragon's eye. That's very sculptural.
Oh yeah.
I got one.
We both made a mold and made these gold escutcheons to make like this giant keyhole.
This is more
This
typical.
is more like it, yeah.
This is more typical of what we do, because we also kind of wanted to have that kind of feeling of another world that you could look through a keyhole kind of and see
what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, because we just play around. I guess that the biggest theme that we do really is thresholds, is that idea of being able to go into another world of the imagination, whether it's a dream or whether it's a waking kind of imaginative thing. But we really want people to be able to look at the painting and kind of imagine crossing over
And that's
the frame,
right.
and
the
going
keyhole,
into the world.
The keyhole it's a literal threshold. You know, a door has a threshold and you go through. And so that's where the keyholes come from.
Very nice. And we should say to the audio listeners that you definitely want to check out the video version of this podcast, because the visuals definitely are helpful in tying it together, knowing what we're talking about. So, and they can go to the website, of course, but they can actually see what we're actually holding up,
Yeah. Because a lot of it, like we said earlier, it's oil paintings, but we also got to see the painting visualized on a book cover, on a wine bottle, and on a canvas. And also then the more recent ones that we were speaking about, the keyhole kind of more framed what was inside. And what we saw inside the frame was either a painting or another medium. Like you said, it was like a glass dragon's eye. I had to kind of zoom in and look a little closer to see what was going on in there.
Yeah, that's just
But
that's just for fun.
yeah. So anyway, we will find you at the Rittenhouse Fine Art Show on the weekend of June 4th, 5th, and 6th. And how would people get locate that? I'm not a great internet person, so is there a site or something?
Yeah, the Rittenhouse, let me see, I think I just had it up. It's rittenhousesquareart.com.
rittenhousesquareart.com. And of course, then for folks who want to find John and I, you can find us on www.thecitizenbody.com. That's where we have our podcasts, our newsletters, articles, comics, lessons, all the Citizen Body content that really kind of helps us thinking as unifying as one. And obviously, two people doing art together. I can't think of a better unity theme right now that works. And it's amazing. It's really seeing what you guys come up with. It's very cohesive, even though the landscape might look very different than the boat or other. I remember there was one painting, I think, that had an angel or something. There was an angel. There was something on her head, and then the wings, and there was a lot of light in the center too. I noticed was a theme in a few of the paintings that I saw, and just really seeing, being that light inside the darkness. And I think that's what we strive to do as well at the Citizen Body.
Yep,
so again,
as well.
yeah. So Jim and Lynn, thank you very much for being on with us today.
Thank you.
And yeah, so we will definitely be checking out the Rittenhouse Fine Arts Show. And you can also see Jim and Lynn's content on our featured artist of the week at the Citizen Body. So if you're not tuning in, obviously when we broadcast this podcast, it'll be posted probably a week or two from now. So they can always kind of search back in our archives and find you there as well.
Excellent.
All right, everybody, thanks again for being with us. And you were listening to the Citizen Body Bodycast, and we'll tune in with you next time. Take care.